Welcome to the Talking SHHH podcast. That's right. We'll be talking about music, albums, live shows, bands we love, bands not so much. Again, we're talking SHHH. Join me, Scott Nokon, and Stephen James.
So we've been talking about the bands that won't reunite with the original members. And I'll do my quick recap, Stephen, before I give my number one in really no real order, but and it ended up this way. So we're talking about Sabbath, Sepultura, Skid Row. Now I'm going to talk about Queensryche.
Thank you.
This definitely falls into a band that won't reunite. I would love for that, but you know, they're on tour now. The current version of Queensryche, good band.
Yeah,
great singer. Again, I am a purist, so I do draw a line, but I'm not going to be a hater and say I'd never see them live. I'm not going to listen to them. I would enjoy to see them, and they're on tour now.
they just came through
with
here.
Armored Saint. Yeah, they just came through in Orange County a week ago.
Yeah.
And Armored Saints playing, they're working on a new record, which should be done pretty soon, which is phenomenal as well.
What a band.
Yeah, I love them. But Queensryche's doing the EP and the Warning on this tour. So it's kind of like a legacy tour, if we can call that, for Queensryche. But, in that, for me, the heyday for Queensryche with Jeff Tate, and the first time I discovered them was in the EP. There was a lot of live recordings on Lady Wore Black, Take Hold of the Flame, Queen of the Right.
Oh my God.
Japan, because they went there and they just blew down the doors in Japan.
Oh,
and that record, that EP, to this day, I still listen to it. And those tracks are phenomenal. The Warning, I love the Warning record. Operation Mindcrime, when that came out, that was like, okay, here's someone, my opinion, that has from a classic record, from a can't even remember the word. That's what happens when we do these things, at least late at night for me. But the theme for Operation Mindcrime, is it something that would rival maybe a little, a nasty thing to say, but The Wall, right? As far as just showcasing it and being thematic. Seeing them on tour, saw them themselves play, like theater shows, saw them with Accept at Irvine Meadows, saw them Accept Udo. Udo's going to be mentioned in every show, by the way. Right? We just have to say
it has to call it the Udo show.
Yes. And then when they opened, which to me, we'll do tours in the future.
Absolutely.
But Metallica on Metallica on Injustice for All, and Queensryche on Operation Mindcrime. That is hands down the best live show combo of two bands I've seen in my life. Then Empire just put them at a completely next level. After Promised Land, I think they kind of fizzled out, and then Jeff Tate ended up leaving, and there was a lot of just debate, which we won't talk about, on our show. I'll just leave it on a positive. But after Promised Land, and last note on this, they came back through. So they went to the mountaintop, and then they came back down. I was fortunate enough to see still all 5 original members at the House of Blues after Promised Land. And so I don't know, that would have been mid-90s maybe. I'll look it up and see. But the fact that they came back through, Glenn and I went to that show.
No kidding.
Blues. And yeah, that was such a treat for me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In the thousands, I say jokingly, of concerts I go to, because we're actually going to see Godsmack next Wednesday night. Their little acoustic thing they're doing.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I never saw Queensryche live, unfortunately. And I wore the tape out when they first came out. I had a little Nissan truck, and the EP of Queensryche, Queen of the Reich, I played over and over until I ruined it, and I had to get another cassette. And I couldn't figure out what enthralled me about his voice that could pull those high notes. When I know,
Yeah.
I think we talked about it last week. Who was doing it earlier? Ian Gillan from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Um, Rob Halford, Green Manalishi, and I didn't notice that then until after I heard Jeff Tate do what he was doing, and the Japan stuff, which you can Google or YouTube, and that, and even when they even did the Operation Mindcrime live, and that singer that they had that sang on the album, that they brought her out live,
Yeah.
Sweet Sister Mary. I was like, what? I was like, she's like, when I first heard that album, I was like, that's like the female version of Jeff Tate. And I was melted by it. I was like, oh my God, that's my favorite song on this whole album, Sweet Sister Mary.
Yeah.
And to watch it live on the YouTube, it was like, I stabbed myself. I'm like, fuck, I wish I really would have gone to seen them live. But I truly, as you are, one of my all-time favorite heavy metal bands. And if I had a top, well, I do have a top 5, I probably have a top 10. Queensryche is definitely probably number 1 for me. And the drummer, Scott Rockenfield, my God, what an amazing drummer. But yeah, should they reunite? I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would too. And again, same thing. You push everything aside that's happened, and you come back and say, could you guys do it? And again, you talk, it's like Scott Rockenfield, like, he's kind of disappeared, for a number of years. And I don't even know what the history, the guitar player, Michael Wilton, right? He's nowhere to be seen anymore. Right. So you have
Eddie
Jackson, and you have, and I used to be able to say all their names, and so I can't.
Me too.
I can't remember the other guitar player, but that's it. So the drummer is someone I don't know now, and Todd Latore, right? He's a great singer. Crimson Glory, right? Was he the singer of that? He was like the drummer too. So
really? I didn't know that.
So he can play drums and he can sing. So he's kind of got it working both ways. But
very cool.
Yeah. Will they? Probably not.
Yeah. You and I had an opera. You saw him. I saw Jeff come when he came through here. He played. There's a place down in Hermosa Beach that Isabel and I, when we first reunited, went and saw him play. And that was to me, seeing Queensryche was seeing Jeff Tate live, because to me, Queensryche is Jeff Tate. But when you peel Jeff Tate out, that the original guitar player, and I forget his name too,
Chris DeGarmo. There we go.
Chris DeGarmo. When you hear them in that Japan live thing, and he's doing the harmonies, his pitch is higher than Jeff Tate's. And you're like, what in the F is going on here?
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've watched several. I like to watch kind of reaction videos, and again, the algorithm pulls up where I saw people reacting to Take Hold of the Flame. And those notes that and when, to me, to see the reaction of somebody reacting to it, music has a huge impact on me in my heart. And there's a lot of times where I hear music that makes my eyes weep, and I don't know why. It's just a feeling I get that just, it grabs a hold of me and goes, that's amazing. And we can go into other musicians on another show, but Jeff Tate's voice, just every time I hear him sing, I just go, that's the ultimate heavy metal voice right there.
Yeah. No, I agree. He is my number 1 singer, vocalist, huge influence from first time I heard him. Queensryche as a band is my number 1 all-time favorite band. And again,
Absolutely.
we'll talk about bands. So we've already revealed who our number 1s are. But that's okay. And that probably kind of is in line with why we get along and can talk through this stuff.
Absolutely.
There's certain similarities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. One just honorable mention, I would have liked a reunion, should they have or shouldn't they have? When Kiss did their last, 2 years of this is the end of the road thing, um, I saw Kiss reunite in '96 at Irvine Meadows, and I saw them when I was a kid in 1977, I think, for the World Kiss Alive 2 tour, I
Yeah.
think. But to see that reunion was like, okay, that was pretty cool. And then I actually had the reality that it's kind of like almost like going to a circus when you go see Kiss. They're not the greatest musicians in the world, but to see Peter Criss and Ace Frehley playing with those two guys, I think this last gig they should have pulled that in to them.
I think
But
so. Yeah. Who knows why, and just who knows why. And
yeah,
just this week, I think it was announced yesterday that Kiss sold their catalog as well as their naming rights to, I think it's Concord Group. And I don't recall, and you could easily Google this, but they've been very active in buying catalogs of musicians over the last. So it's basically
what?
venture backed by venture capitalists. So they're just gobbling up. There was Concord, the just within this week as well, also bought the catalogs, not of Genesis, but of the members, not counting Peter Gabriel. So Tony Banks, and I forget the other, and of course Phil
Mhm.
Collins. They're all their catalogs, and that was over 300 million as well. So
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
it's I get it. At some point, the music's going to live on. If you just want to kind of take all that at one point, those artists have all made tens of millions of dollars over the
Of
years. So if you
course.
get that one lump sum, you have it for your family, you have it for generations. You can't fault. I can't talk about that. You can't fault anybody for that. But it
No.
will be interesting just to see where, that already is. Like Bob Dylan, what $400 million I think he
Yeah,
got
I
for
heard that.
his. There's still some, like the early on. This was a complete other episode, so I'll just end it on this. Where it first started coming up was when Michael Jackson bought the Beatles
The
catalog.
Beatles. Yeah.
And then who knows, at the time it may have been just $25 million. Who knew? And then if he was able to flip that, or if his family still owns the Jackson, estate, if they still own a
Right.
piece of that. I
Yeah.
think they do. I think they might. That might be something, kind of
And
fun
there
to
was a
dig
lot of
into.
controversy about that too when that happened. Now it's like, oh yeah, whatever. They're
Right.
selling their
How can
rights.
you give up your rights? It's like,
I don't get it.
yeah.
But obviously it's all about the almighty dollar. And Kiss, first of all, are, if you Google the net worth of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, you're like, do you really need to add on top of that?
Right.
But it is what it is
Yeah.
in the end of it. So, all right. Beep. So back to bands that should reunite.
So for episode 4, can you believe it? We're up to episode 4.
It's amazing.
Bands that should reunite. So I had trouble on episode 3 actually talking, as you guys would have heard. So I think I've been able to get the word reunite out now. So I'll keep on saying that. But Stephen, you want to jump in and list? I got about 4, so we'll get through these probably a little bit quicker than we did on the last show. But who's first on your list of bands that should reunite?
Queensryche.
Yeah, so they could be where they won't and they should. I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I know that with Jeff Tate doing his solo thing, they tune down, but even with tuning down, he still hits the notes in the tune down. And to
Right.
me, a lot of musicians know that he's doing. A lot of people don't. And when you hear him sing Queen of the Reich or whatever, I think he's even doing Take Hold of the Flame again now. But yeah, bands that should reunite should be Queensryche. Get all the guys, get Scott Rockenfield back together, get the I'm sorry, I missed the guitar player's name.
Chris DeGarmo.
Chris DeGarmo. I apologize. I apologize, Chris, if you're listening.
Yes.
You know, why not? And we talk about the money draw. Is it for money? For me, no, it would be just, I want to get out there and jam. I want to play with the
Absolutely.
original musicians
Yeah.
and do what we know how to do. That to me is ultimate. And you know, I'll probably bounce a few that we just talked about, won't, but probably should or should. And I believe that Jeff Tate could easily slip back in. And I saw an interview with Jeff Tate, and it might have been the singer, or I might have read it. And I apologize, I'm rambling. And Jeff Tate gave the new singer, he's like, "Hey, I give you kudos. You're doing a heck of a job." I'm like, talk about a nice gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw a real quick, I'm going to jump off topic. I saw on Reddit today, it said, there's a picture of Peter Criss talking to Eric Carr. And it says, "What is Peter Criss asking Eric Carr?" And I said, "Can you give me drum lessons?" Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Nice.
Queensryche should reunite because they can.
Yeah. Right. And I didn't have them under the should, but just for, you know, alignment with our discussion, and again, as we've talked about on previous shows, that they are our number one band. Yeah, the won't, I think, is fully established,
Right?
but should, yes. Pink Floyd is a band that comes to light that should.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
And now there's been a lot of talk for sure, and it's been a number of years, and there's since been Roger Waters tours, there's been Dave Gilmour tours, and as I put on my glasses so I can actually see, there are, you know, let me kind of bring up some discussions that have happened recently over time. And again, it's the one quote that really stood out that I thought kind of sums it up entirely is, you know, when you go through Dave Gilmour, yes.
Oh,
you know,
and what a voice.
Nick Mason, he's
Yep.
maybe, you know, he does, and he can, right? There's been, he plays some of the early Floyd, so maybe more of the deep tracks and the early records that is part of a saucer full of secrets. So, you know, if you're a Floyd like deep fan, then you're probably familiar with that. I'm not personally. I might look that up just out of interest. But when you get to Roger Waters, definitely not.
No.
And he re-recorded Dark Side of the Moon as part of a solo record. And he spoke to the Daily Telegraph at one point, and he said, I quote, "I wrote the Dark Side of the Moon. Let's get rid of all this we crap. Of course, we were a band. There were 4 of us. We all contributed, but it's my project and I wrote it. So blah." You know.
So yeah,
So,
a little
but should
conceited.
they? I would love to see that. That's at a stadium
conceited.
level, you know. Well, yeah, absolutely. And there's he has opinions about many different topics, and we won't even go into that because there's stuff that isn't just going to be, you know, I won't even talk shit about any of those other topics. There's just no interest at all. But yeah, it's would there be a phenomenal presentation like years ago? And again, I missed this. I never saw Pink Floyd, so part of this is more just for my own, you know, personal reasons to say, should they? Yeah, because I'd love to see them. But yeah, I think, do they fall into the won't reunite? Probably 100%, but I'm putting them in the should category for my own interest.
And they did and I don't know what live, it was Band-Aid or, you know, one of those, and they did do a handful of songs, which was phenomenal because, you know, you could just see and hear the crowd going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." And you could actually kind of see the smiles on both David Gilmour's face and Roger Waters' face, that they were kind of, you know, like, I think Roger Waters was probably a little more excited, which why I don't get why there's heartburn over the two of them. But the only people that could reunite in that band would be Nick Mason, Roger Waters, and David Gilmour, because their keyboard player unfortunately passed away, and he was a phenomenal keyboard player.
Yeah.
There's a part in Us and Them on Dark Side of the Moon where they say up, and there's this tiny little keyboard, bring, and it's the tastiest portion of music I heard. I got to see Pink Floyd live at the Los Angeles Arena in 1987.
Okay. Nice.
And the visuals were unbelievable. Was I under the influence? Probably. But it was such an amazing show. The sound, and I back then, when we were younger in the 80s, we got shitty seats, right? I mean, we sat in the nosebleeds and we were like, and I'm a snob now and I'm paying up. I'm getting onto the floor and going to the stage every time I go to a show now, if I can. I'm like, I want to see it. I want it to be in my face. But Pink Floyd, yes, they should. I don't know that David Gilmour does much anymore. I know he lives on a boat on the River Thames in England,
Okay.
which I saw, but you're right. Yeah, they should. Definitely should reunite. Like I said, one show, like we talked about previously.
Yeah. It can be like a pay-per-view, depending on where it's at. If it's somewhere, if it's in LA, New York, if it's in London, then obviously, people are going to go. I think it would just put a nice end to a career that, from, God, with the first record, easily 55 years, right? 50 years for sure, 50 years easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's phenomenal.
I think for the right amount of money. However, I've heard that they've offered money to ABBA to do the same thing and they never did. So
yeah, and come on, if ABBA's not going to do it, who is? So. But no, yeah.
So this one has already happened, but I'm just going to throw it in is Guns N' Roses. And what, I don't know how many years ago it was that Axl said not in this lifetime.
Yeah, right.
And that ended up happening. It was truly cool. I do wish they would have put Steven Adler back in, even though he had his issues with heroin and all of his addiction problems. He still can play drums amazingly. Mm-hmm. And you can see videos of him still playing those songs and smiling and having a good time.
Right.
And they should get Izzy Stradlin back and do that. Let's put this whole thing back together the way it was back when they did it. And again, I was fortunate to see him at the Palladium back in what year was it? Right when Appetite came out, it was probably
so 87.
Yeah. And Palladium's like a club, so you can see how well they're doing now. It was good, and my date that night was a girl that I had a crush on in high school that actually went with me. But anyhow, we'll leave that to another thing. And a quick interesting story on that night. Brett Erickson was there, and they were was he with, what was that band they were in?
Viking.
It was Viking. So they were hanging around, they were all in a circle with their producer. And I walked up to say hi. Hey, Brett, how you doing? And he like basically said, go fuck off. And I was like,
really?
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, we were in bands together, 2 bands, and we're good friends. And it came to that where he basically just told me to go fuck myself because I was below him now. It's like, okay, I see what it is. It's all good.
Yeah. No, we don't need to talk about it. And we have about 9 minutes to go. So
sorry, I didn't mean to throw that in.
You're good. That was good.
All right. Sorry. All right. Let's go. Let's continue on. My bad.
Totally good. Totally good. We can talk about bandmates that told us to fuck off on a future episode. How's that?
Yeah, you can edit that out.
There's a few.
Yeah, exactly.
Bands that should reunite. So this is where on episode 3, I stated a rule, and I'll make this brief so I don't suck up all the time, where I wouldn't include bandmates that had passed away. Well, okay. I'm breaking this right now because there is a son that can, carry the tune for sure. So Jason Bonham can play I don't know, is it sacrilege to say he can play as well as his dad? I won't go that far, but can he play all the songs? And has he done Zeppelin tribute shows and tours? Absolutely. And you shut your eyes and you think you're listening to John Bonham. But Led Zeppelin.
Absolutely.
Now, again, talk
Absolutely.
about a band that, has there been some, have they gotten back together in a smaller scale? There also was some conversation around when Jimmy Page and Coverdale got together for Coverdale Page. It's like, well, Plant and Page, right? That just makes so much sense, and you could have added in one more member and been able to do it. But would you still see, and you talk about the money that would go that way to have Led Zeppelin do that, you talk about stadiums and how that would come together. Again, it wouldn't be the original band, of course. And they did put together, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, 2 albums, a pair of successful albums in the 90s, but would they do a full-blown tour with Jason Bonham? Why not?
Well, I'll tell you what.
These days, Live Aid, there was like a little, hit, but would they actually do something now?
They should, because I know that Robert Plant still does stuff with Alison Krauss.
Yeah.
They Dave Grohl kind of had a little bit of a hand of reuniting a little bit of that when they went and played the O2 Arena.
Yeah.
They had Jimmy and oh my God, my brain, it's like a
John Paul
computer.
Jones.
John Paul Jones, an amazing bass player, and probably wrote and was probably the band leader for that band.
Yeah.
They easily could do it. And John Bonham is one of my influences for the laid back heavy beat that I do.
Yeah.
However, I really think that Jason, you hear the drummers today when we listen to those beats where those guys are doing these double bass drum beats that are going. Grrr.
Yeah.
I honestly think that Jason has kind of surpassed his dad personally, in my opinion. And I would never compare the two, but Jason can easily pull that off.
Sure.
And again, you're having blood in the band. So yeah, should they reunite? Heck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
We've stayed metal mostly, right? Hard rock metal, but I'm going to go into it's a rock band for sure. And they set the world on fire for sure, but Oasis.
Oh, yeah. Too bad the brothers they can't get along.
They can't get along, right? They would fight and they would, yell at one another, even on stage. Though those records, the first couple ones just were incredible. Those songs, Champagne Supernova is one of my top songs to this day.
I love it.
Yeah, and again, it's when it came out, I remember I would make a weekly stop, and we got about 5 minutes to go. Weekly stop at Tower Records and would pick up CDs all the time. I still have that CD stashed somewhere. But one of the quotes, and I love this, and this kind of fits the band perfectly. We don't have anything else left to prove.
Yeah. And the last what I saw them a live shot was Ringo Starr's son, Zach Starkey, playing with them. And another one of the songs that I actually really like is Don't Look Back in Anger.
Yeah.
They've got the Champagne Supernova, Wonderwall, Don't Look at, they do Helter Skelter too. But I agree. It just kills me that your blood can't get back together. And because this band just was huge and they still have a cult following.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. They should. And I doubt that'll, I don't want to never say never, right? But they should get back together because that would just sell. I would go see it.
Yeah, I would too. And they what they would do, and you just gave them the tour name, Never Say Never.
Never.
Tour
there you go.
So
I like Axel said, not in this lifetime. That's their tour motto.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're doing it. I think that's probably a good way to end our show today.
I think
bands that
so.
should get back together. It's interesting that you say that, because that's one of you and I have so much in common when we talk about music, because that's a band I really like. I like their songs. And it's interesting too, as I was showing Isabel the other day, watching, I think the singer's name is Liam, right?
Yes.
But when you watch him sing, how he does that, he kind of tweaks back. And then every time he sings, he does this weird little tweak back. And I think it's so, there's something that I just identify with that. It's like, that's just his thing.
Right.
He just, there's things that I focus on with music. And I'm sure you do too. How people do the things they do, how they play, how they represent themselves, how they portray themselves, and watching him sing, and it just seeing that push into it it's what drives me when I'm playing drums and playing to music. It's that push in. I don't have like I'm trying to be somebody else.
Right.
I don't have like I want to be like Tommy Lee and spin sticks, although I can do that. Let's see.
There we go. Look at that. Yeah. You can't look at that, but picture sticks twirling.
If you were to watch it, I was doing Tommy Lee, and let me just take a quick little plug. Motley Crue should hang it up.
Yeah. There'll be another episode, and so it's pretty cool on the Spotify, and there's comments that are being left, and so again, we want to thank everyone that is tuning in to the show. Again, we do this, as Stephen said, it's a passion, it's a creative outlook. We like one another, so we like just to talk and hang out, and here we are. We're going to continue doing this until there's no reason to do it. And I don't know, there's no timetable. It's really a matter of just kind of putting it together and having fun. But yes, a future episode, to my point, a future episode could be bands that should say goodbye.
Yeah. And to those that are tuning in, we appreciate that. I know we're little right now, but we intend to grow. And if you have questions and comments and suggestions that you'd like to hear, please feel free to ask. We are open to everything. We have no holds bar here. We're thrilled to be a part of Talking Music and Talking SHHH. So
yes,
please be a part of our new little thing we're doing, and we want to get big. And if we don't, whatever, but we just want you to enjoy and be a part of our discussions about music or movies too.
Yeah. Music, movies, world events, maybe topics.
No politics.
Thanks again for tuning in to the show. We'll be back every week with a brand new episode. Make sure you check us out on Instagram at Talking SHHH Show, and also listen on Spotify or wherever you can stream a podcast. See ya.